So you needed to be updated, and you have the ability. It was everything. It's out there in the open. Okay.
Correct. I agree with what Stan's thinking is that our original intent was to show consideration for a hardship caused by the virus. People that this is their trend, that's a different situation. That they have something else they have to deal with. Our intent was to make an exception because of the virus and loss of work revenue from the virus. So I think we've done that.
Right. Yeah. And they can come forward for an abatement.
Yeah, I agree with Alan and Stan. I think we should just let it just play out as it's supposed to.
Yeah, I agree with it, Joe.
Good. Okay. Moving on to the next. I haven't done as much research yet as I can because I haven't gotten the direction the school is going into, but I was hoping to see some of the board member on the school board meeting last Thursday. But I did sit in on the whole thing. It was very painful because they just don't know what they're doing, and we don't know, and they're relying on the clerks to decide what to do about the school vote. For April, we're very torn about whether it's going to be a vote by drive up. Is it going to be an in-person vote, or is it going to be totally all mail vote, mailing absentee ballot? I did question Jack and Will Sunning whether or not can we do just a complete mail-in vote and not even give the option to come in and physically vote. I mean, what are our rights? Can we do that? That being said, they've picked a date of June 25th for the vote on the budget, which I don't know if they had realized, but I brought up to their attention, okay, so June 25th is our budget. I typically set, or the board, our select board typically sets the municipal tax rate June 30th, and then I move forward and I take the education that I get June 30th, and then I print tax bills the first week to the second week of July. Well, if we're not going to have a school tax rate until June 25th, they have to wait 30 days before they can give me the final tax rate to make sure nothing comes back about the vote before I can then set a tax rate to send out tax bills. So we're looking at another month late. So June 25th to July 25th before I can actually move on whatever rate that the education sets, which would mean the first week of August, I would probably be able to print the tax bills. Typically, they're due the second week of August. Once I mail out the tax bills, they have to, by statute, have 30 days notice before first tax payment's due. Probably looking at first tax payment being moved to September. Again, Joe brought up this morning, and I'd already thought about it. I have not addressed VLCT. We vote as a town at town meeting, as one of our articles for the 4 quarter payments are stated as August, November, February, May. Can we change that? I'm not sure.
No.
I don't know, but we don't have a choice. We could.
Well,
it depends if they change things in the legislation again. We don't know. I gotta research further, and if that's the case, I'm looking at August for the municipal, and then doing a supplement bill again this year, possibly. Or if I can have the ability, I would like to do a tax bill in September. Then the next one would be in November, and we'd be back on track. So I'm hoping that they do give us some sort of leeway. In September, I can move our tax billing there. So that being said, and because we may not get all the funds in like we should on a quarterly basis, looking at the financial portion of it for the beginning of our 2021 tax year, we have to be extremely mindful of how we're spending, because we're going to have to work the town for approximately 3 months with no revenue coming in.
What would be the borrowing aspect of it to cover those taxes that are
not coming in? I'm not sure. It's more figuring I'm going to have to do. I'm assuming we should be okay because we have enough money with the unanticipated funds that we usually end up with at the end of the year and the general fund. We do have quite a bit of money in our reserves. I know that all of our money sits into one account, so excuse me a minute, our one account does have all of the monies in it, but it's our accounting system that actually breaks it apart. So it's rob Peter to pay Paul. It's like, we can still take from the capital budget because the money's sitting in there. It's just how it's allocated. So I think we should be okay as long as we've got that money and we've got our reserves that we could lean on. And the balance sheet would just look kind of funky for a little bit.
I have two questions. I just don't see how you can just override the town vote.
Well, that's what I got to find out.
That means that anything you vote at the town meeting and you want to change, I mean, that's something I don't think you can do unless the legislature changes that.
That's what I said. I got to check and see what the legislature changed because they changed the 8%. And typically you can't override the 8% if it belongs to the delinquent tax collector, but they just did that on Friday.
Right. The other thing is, if we had to go out and borrow money because we were short during this 3-month period, is that money then reimbursable under this virus thing?
I doubt it. No, because this happens to be school related. This isn't the virus related.
Yeah, that's right.
This is all school tax rate.
So then would the school then reimburse us?
It's coming out of the same pocket on the wrong, but no. We didn't get reimbursed last time for our supplement bills that we had to pay for.
I certainly wouldn't change the dates. I would keep the dates just as they are and then work it in the best that you can, even if you had to, I hate to, think about it, send out it like you did last time, a supplementary tax bill, but I think that, at least in my mind, and I have really no idea what I'm talking about, but I would think that is the way to do it.
Can I chime in for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm reading something that has been published by PBR. There is no specific law to allow select boards to explicitly change tax payment due dates, as these dates are voted by the town at town meeting. However, there are several actions the town can take that affect taxes and tax payments. Taxes are due on the date and by the method the town voted at the town meeting. However, state law requires that tax bill notices still be sent to the taxpayer at least 30 days before they are due. Therefore, the tax collector, in consultation with the select board, can decide to wait until a later date to send out tax bills. In this scenario, taxes would be due 30 days from the date the notice is sent. If the tax bills be sent out late, then the town should be very clear as to when they will be sent and when the taxes will be due. So you can decide to send the bills out later, and you have to make sure you set the date, which is 30 days later, and when they will be collected. But you have that ability. You can, and they will not allow changing the dates that were selected in the town meeting.
Right. And in September, when we did it the last time, both towns changed their dates that they sent out their bill. And both Athens and both Westminster opted to, instead of doing a supplement tax bill, they actually moved and collected at a different time. They sent out notices, but they collected at a different time. We chose to do a supplement tax bill.
The other thing that you have bears in mind here is that, yes, we're voting on the homestead municipal tax rate and budget on June 25th. It may get approved, it may not. If it goes down the tubes, who knows what's going to happen. But we do not have, and the state has not set a non-residential tax rate, which is the biggest rate for collecting taxes in this town. And that, what we're hearing, will not be set probably before August 1st, which means educational tax rates aren't going to be available until, like Kim is saying, the first week in August. for printing bills for educational taxes. So either you decouple your municipal taxes from your education taxes, or you're going to have them all coming at one. And I think Kim wants to keep them together. Is that correct, Kim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She wouldn't want to send out bills strictly for municipal only and then have to send out the educational tax bills at a later date, because it would be probably confusing to most of the people.
And double, triple the work us to keep them separated. So just to keep that in mind, we're working on it as we're working, and Hardy can verify he's been attending the school board meetings.
That's correct.
They're just as confusing as we're talking right now. There's just nothing straightened out. Emails flying by today. I still don't know what to think.
Would it be Kim? Kim or Hardy? Would it be advisable for the town to, if they can, tell the school that they want a show-up meeting where we can get the thing done without the huge expense? Because we're going to have an expense on collecting, but we're going to have an expense on voting if they're going to say we're going to go to ballots. Just have everybody show up one day over at the school. We can stand 400 feet apart on the ball field and say no, and then go home. You know, I mean, that's all. This is stupid.
I think the town can decide how they want to do the vote. I think as long as
then let's decide.
Well,
then let's decide.
Jack's last email that I just got about a half an hour to an hour ago, he'd like to see the 3 towns do it consistently, and the warnings all have to read the same.
Oh.
So we have to wait on that. So his feeling is that we should probably have a vote by absentee and send out a mass request. So they all get an absentee ballot request. So that means stuffing them all and sending them out to everybody. Wait for them to come back so we can then turn around and send out their ballot. Do everything by mail.
What a joke that is.
Well, not to mention, just so you know, there's 9 articles that they're voting on. They're not voting on just a budget, a yes or no. There's 9 articles. Now, do you not think we're going to get some questions on that? The other scenario they came up with is, that was Jack's favorite, is to do the mailings, which would require, we're a hand count town, so somebody's going to have to help me stuff all these. And then when the requests come in, and then once I send out the ballots, and then when they come in, we all have to gather for counting. Somebody mentioned something about gathering to have an open meeting like Bill's referred to. They still don't feel that still doesn't go by the governor's rule of no more than 10 people at any organized meeting, whether 6 feet or not. He feels that's even more dangerous than doing the mailings because the exposure. The next thing is drive-by voting. Okay, so I guess you stand in one place. I find that more exposure. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. You're going to have multiple people in one vehicle. There's some people that don't drive. So how do you have a drive-by for those who don't drive? There will be could be 2, 3 in a vehicle. We're going to go up to the vehicle. We're going to have to speak to them. We're going to have to make sure they're on our checklist. Then we're going to have to go get them a ballot. Then we're going to have to hand them a ballot. They're going to have a board, a clipboard, and a pen, each one in the same vehicle. Pull over there. Then we're going to retrieve it. If they have questions, I'm going to have my head in there. Now, where's the privacy if you've got 2 voting in one vehicle? And I'm explaining, then take all the stuff back, clean the stuff before the next car pulls up. I don't know. I said I would work with whatever has to happen, but we're.
Well, Kim, why couldn't Grafton and Athens and whoever have their own meeting and vote like we always did? Why do we have to have this conglomeration of and do it one time? What's the difference?
Well, it's not all at one time. It's all the same way we do our voting. I asked Hardy, are you lost in all of how they want to do this?
Yeah, I don't think they know how they really want to do it, but I would agree that you probably could go to VLCT and see if we couldn't just have a vote outside on the ball field. I don't see why you couldn't do that.
I couldn't see. I don't
If
see
I
why
could
not.
say
It's just like
comment,
you
I
vote in the
think it'd
town
be a
hall
lot.
on March, on town meeting day.
I
mean,
think it'd be a
there's a lot
lot
of-
less
there's a
risk
lot-
to do that than to handle the ballots 3 times or go to the car and do all that. I think being out on the field and then and besides that, it gives them a chance to take 10 or 15 minutes to explain the 8 things that are on the ballot, like Kim says, or a half hour. Because otherwise, no one's ever going to know. Some people will never know what the heck the ballot's about anyway.
And we're just going to be standing there explaining.
The other thing is, I've been listening to the meetings, but I have not yet seen what we're voting on for a budget. There's no detail. I haven't seen any detail. I don't know what the implications are to the town as taxpayers. I don't know whether anybody else has. Have you seen anything, Kim? Recently?
They have not recently, but way in the beginning, they sent out those reports that are sitting in my lobby, but they've changed the budget since then. So I don't know how they would even imply, because the budget's gone down, which is a concern because, yeah, the vote's gone down, but who knows the vote's gone down unless you've attended the meeting. I mean, the budget's gone down. Unless you've attended any of these meetings, you don't know that budget's dropped. And they are going to pick up the cost, so there wouldn't be any cost associated to it, just the safety and the time.
I have a basic question, and I think it's directed to you, Kim. Normally at town meeting, you run the voting.
Yep. Elected official.
But this is a school vote, but it is setting town taxes. Who runs this vote? Is that still you're the one that runs that?
Yeah, because I'm an election official.
Correct. So if you run it, do you decide in this case? Is it your decision or Jack's decision how the voting should be done? And it seems like Jack has his idea how he would like to see it done, and then maybe there's reality or what you're comfortable with for health reasons and efficiency way. It seems to me like this is your decision. We can stand behind you or support what you want, but it seems like it's really your decision to make. Am I wrong or right?
Well, no, it's true, but it's really hard because he's trying to take in consideration what each one of us clerks want of the 3 towns. So he's falling on us, asking us our opinion. All of us have different opinions, and for all good reasons. Everybody's got a different reason for something different, and I think some of the scenarios are great, but then there's fault in other parts of it. So we just can't seem to all come together. And I think they want it to be consistent.
Why?
Well, he shouldn't ask you for your opinion unless he really wants to hear it. And if you have different opinions in different ways that you would like to see it done in different towns, he should accept that.
Yeah, but
well, see, in the warning, Joe, if you read the beginning of our warnings, it tells you when the polls are open and when they're closed. And if we don't have an opening and closing of the pollings, then that makes it difficult, to because we have to have the same wording on all of our warnings.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Isn't the ultimate goal is to get a vote? What is the difference if one town votes in a ball field or another town votes from the mail or another town votes some other way? The answer is the vote.
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the things I'm being told through the meetings and all, and maybe I need to clarify it with Will. And
if I were in your case, Ken, I think Alan's absolutely right. You are the elected, whatever you are for the election, the ballot clerk, whatever. You should do what you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Say, okay, this is basically what the town of Grafton, or you've decided as the the individual in charge and said, this is the way we're going to move forward, and let's see how everybody else wants to do it. And I think Joe's right too, is if just because, 200 people or 100 people want to stand out in the ball field, or other people want to drive by, that's their deal. As long as by a certain date the vote is taken, what's the difference how it happens?
Yeah, vote to vote.
I know that one of my scenario was, to me, I think I could handle it better if we were to have an in and an out and let in only 1 to 2 voters at a time in a very large area. Not that we can use the school, but for instance, if we had a building the size of like the gym and you come in one door, you go out the other door, you stand on the red marks, I think I would be more comfortable being able to monitor something on that idea with full face protection and all, of just sitting there and not leaning my head in and not knowing if my hands are exposed in the items, and I could have more control over something like that.
Well, you could set like that up down at the fire station. You got these great big doors. You can have one line in one door, go out the other door, and nobody's crowded together. I don't think that's a bad idea.
And the thing with our town, our turnout is going to be so minimal.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, it's going to be minimal.
Yeah.
That I think I could manage it. Westminster, on the other hand, they've got 2,500 on their checklist. So, and they'll have quite a good turnout, I'm sure. But so that's kind of my thought of how I could handle it. But I got to wait and see what transpires with the emails. So kind of let you know, even though it's a little off the clerk and treasurer, but it's out there.
Well, Kim, I can't speak for the board, but I speak for myself. To me, I think you should do what's comfortable as long as you deliver the vote.
Right.
I agree.
Well, and we would definitely have to have your opinions because you are part of the BCA for counting. So.
Well, I wouldn't mind counting as long as we're separated. We can do that.
And gloves. So I'll see what Jack says. He has not gotten back to me. He was supposed to talk to the clerks after Thursday's meeting, and I hadn't heard from him, only some emails, and I'm sure he's right out straight. I'm sure everything's so confusing to him too, trying to figure all this out.
I think you're gonna have the best luck if you're proactive with Jack and your counterparts. You send something to him and say, I understand you'd like to have it all the same, but these are my concerns, and this is my suggested solution or the method that we will use in Grafton. I would hope you would respect my concerns and we can move forward. I think you kind of lead them where you want to go.
I know, but I'm not so much that type of person. I'm like, okay, I'll make whatever work.
No.
But I'll try. I'll work with him a little bit more.
If you want to make it work, you're going to get whatever Westminster wants and not what you're comfortable with. I think you got to take a stand on this one.
Okay.
I agree with Alan.
Yep, I do too.
All right, I will follow up with him. And I will follow up with
if you need
what Hardy had to say about our quarterly payments and what to do with that. So, but I wanted the board to be aware of the beginning of next budget and our spending.
I wonder if you and Bill should write some kind of a little explanation as best as you can, a summary of what you told us for the Grafton News. But we need to get more voters to follow what's going on and understand what's going on. Perhaps enough people get upset. The legislative representatives will hear about it.
I agree.
I think Michelle wants to say something. She's been waving her hand. Michelle?
There's a school board meeting on Thursday night. Feel free to join.
Yeah, you really should. You
really
find
should.
it interesting.
Is that a Zoom meeting?
It is a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Nobody notified me of a meeting last Thursday.
You go on the WNESU website and come down to the middle of WNESU. It says upcoming agendas and meetings. You click on that site and then it gives you the dates of the meetings and you click on that to join the meeting. So there's actually like 2 screens to go into and then they'll let you in and it appears just like this.
So when you're talking about a vote of a school budget that's not even presented or approved, you have to have a certain percentage of our voters. Is that correct?
Well,
of those voting.
Yes.
Yeah, the school board already voted for a budget. They've set the budget already. Jack, last Thursday, they set the budget. And Jack actually will join in the next select board meeting, not this one. It was too soon from Thursday's meeting. So I was kind of hoping he'd be able to join in today just to update us. And I did ask if when he joins next select board meeting, if he would join several of them. I talked to Jessa and I want to talk to Jack about at least just piping in and cluing us all in as to what the budget's all about. You know, explain it, because I don't know how they're going to handle an informational meeting to get the word out. So I did ask them. So they're working on something of that sort too.
Yeah, they had talked about doing a Zoom meeting like town hall style so people could ask questions.
But you can see what the attendance tends to be like when you have any of these Zoom meetings. It's usually those who are participating, and that's about it. I don't foresee that getting out there too far, but.
I also wondered if that's why he wants to do the voting with a ballot versus in a field, because isn't this one of those votes where we have to be added with Athens and Westminster?
Yeah.
So maybe they're thinking that if we mail them, that we'll get a better response than if we meet. I don't know. That's kind of the feeling I got.
I think if you vote the way Kim wants to do it, I think you'll get a much better response than on the mail, personally.
Yeah, I see a big expense and a waste, but I don't know. I haven't experienced it ever. I don't know if anybody has, so. But stay tuned, because this could be our primary and our general, so we might get used to this. Okay, one other thing, off to a more clerk than a treasurer, Green Up Day. I do have Green Up bags here. I've spoken to Don Dougal this morning. I've gotten an email already. Then I got a Facebook chat. People are already wanting to start to green up when there isn't an official Green Up Day yet. So the problem is I don't want to hand out the Green Up bags for people to fill them and then leave them on the side of the road or bring them to Jamie's garage when there's no dumpster scheduled. I don't think Jamie would like that. So Don's holding, GIA has a meeting Wednesday outside. Yes. With physical distancing, not social distancing. And Don will keep me posted Thursday as to what the decision will be. And then I'll let everybody know that I've got the bags and I will leave them out on the porch. But that's where we are for Green Up Day so far.
We've already done ours. We brought them down to the transfer station down in Bells Falls. We paid for it. I mean, it was $5 or whatever. We've already done ours.
Well, and the governor at one point said that it was going to be the 30th, and then someone heard, Dawn had heard it was canceled, and then it was bring your bag out, pick up what you can, and then bring it home with you and you dispose of it. But then you've got the safety of picking up beer cans and bottles and stuff that other people touch. So
you're going to have that anyway, no matter what date you do it.
Yeah, I know. But that's the GIA's department, so I'm just updating you. So, okay, and I guess I'm done.
Kim, I got a comment and a question for you. Back in 2011, during the flood of Sandy, I asked the town if they would come up with a line of credit of $1 million. in case the town didn't have the funds to pay the contractors, then we would have a source to go to. Has anything been done since then? And if not, is there any interest now?
We sort of touched base a little bit on that because Bill brought it up to me. I guess you talked to him about it. And we've never had a line of credit. The only time was when we had Irene in 11. That one, we did have an issue with that one bank. Actually, we didn't, a lot of other towns did too, of not being able to borrow. And then we did switch to another bank. As for a line of credit, I've never had to set one up, and I'm not really sure if we would really want to set one up because I think it's pretty easy to borrow monies during an emergency now.
Well,
John?
Back then, what we used for a line of credit was the Wyndham Foundation paying their taxes early, the fire department having an excess of funds, and we had some ourselves. If they were not there, we would not have been able to pay the contractors. And if you don't pay them, you're not going to have anybody working. And I don't know what's wrong with having a line of credit.
But that was way back in 2009, or that was in the early 2000s, because we had no problems when it came to Irene in 11. The one bank wasn't cooperating with a lot of the municipalities, and then a lot of them switched to another bank and had no problem getting it at all. But I think times have changed since Sandy from Irene, and then I don't foresee. I mean, but I will have a conversation with Hope, who I work with at Community Bank, and see if there's such a thing. But
John,
yes,
when you and I were on the board back in the 90s, didn't we have? Maybe I'm not remembering, but didn't we apply? Or I know we talked about a line of credit.
Yeah, we did, but it was a much smaller one.
Okay, but we did.
It was probably with a different financial institution too, because we no longer have them. I've switched.
If I can comment, in 2011 we tried to get that money through TD Bank, and they didn't even know how to do it. That's when we found People's, and People's did it immediately, like in a couple days. So John, Kim's going to talk with Community Bank and see if there would be any issue in the case of an event like that. But when all that happened, I talked with Beth Pierce, the treasurer, who is in charge of all the banks in the state, and she then had a meeting with the banks in order to educate them that they can make the emergency loans to towns based on their tax base, and therefore there should be no delay like we ran into. But we ran into it because our bank, and then TDS Bank later, 2 weeks later, called and apologized for not being competent enough to do the work that they should have done. So I don't think it's an issue.
I think all of that has changed over the times. That's why.
But you wouldn't run into any problem at all if you had it in place right now. I don't see anything against having it. What's the downfall of having it?
Well, there could be some cost associated with it to reserve anything or to have it. So that would be the one thing I would want to check into.
Usually, Kim, with the line of credit, there's no cost. They give you an amount.
There's an interest cost and there's a setup cost. Yeah. And there's an annual cost.
Right. The municipalities, I mean, you're looking to borrow like a large amount. So if they're going to hold you some aside for you, then there's got to be some kind of a cost. But like I said, I will call Hope and I will talk with her and find out.
Okay. Anything else for Kim? If not, we move on to the school advisory committee.
I just want to put this up. I just want to put this up for a second. These are the people that are willing to do it. And I think Kathy is willing to, if you can see that. And Kathy is willing to be the ex officio non-voting from the select board. Is that right, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
You're fine with me.
I just want to make sure that I'm given notice as to when the meetings are.
Okay.
Do we need a motion for this?
For this?
Yes, please.
Not necessary.
I didn't hear that.
Do we need a motion or?
Yes.
Or I make a motion.
Yes, you need a motion to establish the committee and to appoint these people on the committee, including Kathy as ex officio non-voting.
I make a motion that we establish a committee with the names that we see before us on the list, on the screen. Do you want me to read the names?
Please.
Hardy Merrill, Chris Wallace, and Rachel Plummer. Ex officio would be Kathy Ciano, representing the select board.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? If we don't, all in favor of Alan's motion to appoint Hardy Merrill, Chris Wallace, and Rachel Plummer, and Kathy Ciano as the to the school committee? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. All right, Bill, what do you got on the virus? Anything?
No, nothing much. Nothing more than what I sent out to everybody to say that the lodging has changed. You know, there's a lot of issues with it because it's very restricted. It's basically Vermonters can go on vacation in Vermont, and visitors, non-residents can come here, but they have to, and go on vacation here, but they have to quarantine for 14 days. Well, if that's the case, then they have to go home probably after 14 days. But if people have a house here, they can come up and quarantine for 14 days, then they can go anywhere in Vermont and go to any lodging in Vermont.
Wasn't that Bill, after they're here for 7 days, if they get a test, they're good also?
If they own a house here, if they have a second home here, they can go after 7 days and get a test at one of those sites. They have to probably keep checking the Vermont Department of Health site. There is a testing being done in Springfield this weekend, or this Friday, I think, the 22nd. Yeah, Friday. And but they have to make a reservation. They don't have to have anything from their doctor. They don't have to have any symptoms. They just have to make a reservation. So I don't know where I don't know how full the place is. I know Brattleboro filled up last week pretty quickly.
Okay, anything on the other thing on the virus? If not, the Village Park, Alan, you want to discuss what's going on there?
Yep, couple things. I spent 2 days last week working on the Village Park, full days. 1 day marking timber with Tim Morton and laying out the proposed site for the parking areas / log landing. Timber volume, primarily ash, an occasional maple or something that needed to be cut in order for equipment for the ash, to get the ash out. About 17,000 board feet of ash, probably generate around $3,000 or so. Depends on what the value of ash at the time. We had hoped it would be a little bit more money. He was going to go back and talk with one of the contractors, loggers that he has worked with. I have not heard any feedback yet. Now we have some volume. I'm not sure that we can develop the parking lot for $3,000. I have to wait and see what he finds out.
A lot of the initial work, though, is going to be to create the landing up there. That's all got to be cleared just for the landing, right? So then the 3,000 can be put in for gravel or something.
Well, you're right. But in order for the log landing to be created, which later becomes the parking lot. There has to be enough timber value to justify doing the work to establish the landing. Follow me? The logger's not going to build a landing and spend $10,000 putting a landing in for $3,000 worth of timber. So I don't know what the costs are to rough in the landing. So that's the part he's got to find out. So we've made some progress, but we don't have all the answers yet on that.
But there is some money, Alan, you know, from the logging up, so that could be used if you wanted to.
I understand that. I would like it to come out as a wash if we can, and use the money for other things in the village park if we can. So that's my plan B, as you suggest, Joe. But I want to see if plan A will work first.
Yes, I agree.
Then I spent a full day with a retired forester friend of mine who was a recreational forester. We cleared all the trails that several years worth of blowdown, accumulation. We cleared all that. We brushed it. We cut a bunch of hazard trees along. We got a little bit left to do from down around the picnic area where the lean-to might be built, and then down. There's one little trail that goes down along the stone wall to the Nature Museum. So we have about a day's worth of work left, and Rick said he'd give me another day's worth of work. So we should finish that the next day that we work there. So that's good news. The bad news is between doing the chainsaw work and trail work and marking the timber, it's a bit disturbing to find out how much Japanese barberry is in there. It's an invasive plant, and it will respond to either the timber cutting, or if we do not do the ash timber cutting, when the ash trees die and then open up the forest floor to more sunlight, whether you do it by cutting or whether they die, you're going to get a response from that Japanese barberry. And it's going to be more than there already is there. Japanese barberry, along with being an invasive, is also an excellent habitat for ticks. That's why those articles got sent to you. I don't know how many of you read those articles, but I really think we need to do something with that barberry, and it would be nice to do it before, if we do a timber cutting, or before the ash dies on its own. We're inviting people to use the park. We shouldn't be inviting them to an area with a high tick population because of the barberry. I checked with Hayden Lake to see if he would be willing to herbicide it like he did buckthorn. He's getting away from herbiciding. He's not interested. There's another forestry group, Longview Forestry in Westminster, that I have not checked with them, but I know they do that kind of work as well. Obviously, there'll be some expense for that. It can be manually pulled. If there was a group of people that were interested to volunteer time and have a good back, they could manually pull it and eradicate it that way. It needs to get taken care of one way or another. So I'm willing to hear ideas and offers. If you know of a group that's willing to volunteer, that would be great. I tried to drum up some interest from the museum, but I haven't heard back that they have a workforce ready, willing, and able. I don't know about having school kids do all the pulling and getting effective work out of a bunch of school kids.
Hey, Alan, I got one other question, not having to do with exactly what you're talking about, but having to do with the piece of land up there. And we haven't done anything on it just because of the virus thing, but the town is still looking into the possibility of some sort of a sewage deal. Is there any land up there on that 50-acre piece that could be relatively level, or you could do a clear cut, and that could be part of the drainage system or dry, what am I looking for, leach field of the possible septic system?
I really doubt it, Stan. In fact, one of the conversations Tim and I had as we worked in there, there's evidence of a lot of surface water in the spring of the year. We really have to pick and choose where you work. It doesn't look like a site that's good site for a leach field. No. In fact, if you look in the records, I forget the name of the family that originally owned it. They either donated it or we purchased it. The town purchased it. But their original intent was to have it as a water supply for the town. So water supply and a wastewater, not two different things, you know, then I don't think it'd work there.
Okay. I just a thought.
Oh, I understand, but based on what I saw, no.
Okay.
So that's my update on the town park. I'll have more from Tim when he gets some more information.
Any other comments before we move on?
Al, what about community service high schoolers pulling the weeds?
I would be okay with that if we could get some quality help. Yeah.
Okay.
How many of those do we have available?
I don't know, Michelle, is that anything that you can find out or put on something out there to the high school?
Maureen Parker could put something out to see if there's kids that need community service. I'm not sure that they do it now in the middle of coronavirus, but right. I can ask her. If they're going up on their own to do it, there'd only be a couple of people. I can ask her.
Okay.
There's enough acreage they can spread out, but you would need to set up some kind of a grid system or some way of keeping track what's done and what's left to be done. You know, if you just randomly go through, you could decrease it, but you won't be effective as far as eradicating it.
So that'd be something you'd have to organize then, right, Al?
If anybody's interested, we'll give them your name.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so are we okay? We can move on?
Yep. I'm okay.
Okay. Similar, the tree warden policy.
Well, I worked on it again today just to clean it up a bit. And it really isn't the tree warden policy, it's the tree policy, but I don't know. I sent it to you, and hopefully you all looked at it. If you did, then here it is up on the screen.
Well, Bill, I appreciate the work that you've done, but at this point, don't we want to wait until, you know, Joe commented on the state was going to write up something on tree policy?
I don't want to wait. You can wait. I don't want to wait. We have trees that you have asked to be cut, and we have no policy. So what are you basing your desire to have them cut other than the state law? You have nothing. You got
Al,
nothing.
I talked to Bill at lunchtime because I brought the article in, and that was my comment, is that the state is going to write a tree policy that they want to use as a guide, and they're going to mandate that each town have a tree warden. And the indication I got from the article was that they were going to let people who do not live in town serve as a tree warden. So I thought that maybe we should just wait and see, rather than trying to develop something. Let's see what they're come up with, and then we could either modify it. Bill's of the opinion that we need to move post haste, and that's, you know, that's something we need to decide how you want to handle it.
Well, the way I look at it is we don't have anything at this point, and I think I went through this thing, and I don't. Again, not knowing anything about it, I don't see anything wrong with at least adopting what's here. You could always change it. I mean, they're looking at the whole thing as the state as part of the emerald ash borer, which is just a portion of what this whole thing is. I would certainly feel better if we had something on record than absolutely nothing. So I guess I intend to agree with Bill on this one, that if we adopt it, at least we have it. We can modify it later.
I can agree to that.
There's one thing that I didn't see at all, and I think somewhere in there should be it should be mentioned, something about the notification of public utilities. Who would do that if a tree has to be cut? You know, power, VTEL, things like that. Who would do that notification to them? You know, who and when? That's really the only comment that I had on the point.
I don't know. Would that be the select board's obligation, or would that be the tree ward's obligation?
Nothing in the state law talks about telling the public utilities anything. That's my first comment. My second comment, if you read this article and you read the policy that I wrote, there isn't anything different in this article this editorial that Carolyn wrote. It's exact same thing. The state law isn't going to change. Apparently, I don't know what she's talking about, because if you read the state law that's in there, it's all the same state law. If you have diseased trees anywhere, you can cut them down, and that's up to the tree warden. The only difference is there's probably a shortening of the time period of the notification for meetings instead of lengthening, and that would be about the only difference. I'll set that forward, and maybe they're rewriting it in order to get to convince towns that they really need to do this. Maybe that's the big change. But to get back to your point, if you are cleaning a right-of-way where it's a town right-of-way that has wires in it, I think you don't even touch those without calling. I mean, that's what you do right now. It wouldn't be any different.
I just think it's a case if it's in there, so nobody can say, well, they didn't realize.
Okay, I can put that in there.
With that change, I'd make a motion that we accept this policy for the town tree warden with the addition of the notification of public utility.
Okay, it's just a tree policy. Not the tree warden.
Okay, the tree policy.
Okay.
Can we have a second?
I'll second it.
Alan, you have any comment?
I'm okay with this policy. But like Bill says, this is a tree policy. It's not your job description for your tree warden.
Right. No, that's correct. Right.
So if everybody is kind of agreement to take this first step, and we have no other discussion, so why don't we take a vote on the motion as made by Stan and seconded by Kathy to adopt the tree policy for the village town of Grafton. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, so all in favor of adopting this tree policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's done. Okay.
Okay. Oh, the listers is next.
Are you okay with that, Bill?
That's great. Yep, I got it.
Okay. The listers now.
Yes.
Artie, go ahead.
Okay, the what you have in front of you is a piece of paper that you can sign, which will allow us to extend the abstract grand list publishing from June 4th, which is the law currently. Because everything is going to be pushed out about a month, as Kim alluded to a little while ago regarding tax rates, it makes sense to allow us at least to push out the grand list filing for about a month, which will incorporate a lot of homestead changes. People don't have to make their homestead changes till July 15th now. That has an impact on our grand list. So it's a technical thing which will allow us to better prepare for the tax rates, which will be developed hopefully by August, as Kim has indicated. Any other questions? We would expect that we would be at the latest publishing our grand list by July 9th under the current scenario instead of June 4th, which is about a month.
So what you're asking, Hardy, is a motion to accept this.
Yeah, all you have to do is, if you're in agreement, is sign this letter, and we have to send it into the property valuation review at the state.
Right, but we need a motion to adopt the letter and sign it.
I think you should make a motion to adopt the letter, and then you have to sign it, and you leave it with Kim, and we get a copy here and we send it in.
So hard. Okay.
Can I add a little something too?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been advised to do this, and if we end up not needing the extension, that's fine. But they've made it as easy as possible for all towns to extend, and this is kind of an anomaly to the usual thing that happens every year. Usually, anyway. So we've been advised by not only PVR but our professional assessor that we should wait as long as possible, and by doing this, then that gives us the leeway to do so.
Okay.
Hardy, that's good with you? You agree with all that?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Alan seconds. Alan, you seconded?
I did.
Okay. All right, so if we have no other discussion,
Yeah.
all in favor?
I have a question. Hold on, I have a question.
Okay.
Yep.
Marty, how does that play into then, so that means we don't get to set our tax rate until after July the 5th, which then means our first quarter tax, we wouldn't even be able to send out our tax bills with the municipal lacking the education. So we're just wiping out.
No, what it means is we can run it anytime you want. Okay, basically it's the ball will now be in the select board and your court as to when we run our grand list and start the process. All this does is it lets it go beyond June 4th. We will be ready June 4th if that's what you want. Otherwise, it can be later. But what it's going to do is mitigate any changes to our grand list related to late homestead filings, basically.
So theoretically, June 29th, you could set the grand list, and then the board can set the rate if they want, if you guys were prepared, and we'd still be on target for our municipal.
You can do whatever you want. We're far enough along where we can do just about anything that you people want.
Because I was thinking if you did go to July, that would just mesh everything together into the school, and we're late on one and we're great.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you wanted to do the municipal separate from the education, we would probably run our grand list about normal, which is like early June, to be ready to set that municipal tax rate by the date that you desire, which is usually July.
In early June is the abstract, and then of course then the months later would be the final.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I gotta go.
All right, so if there's no other questions for Hardy or for Kim or Nancy, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Bill, if you get the letter, I will sign it.
Bill has the letter.
Okay, now, okay, well, that's what I was going to ask. Is everybody signing it or just Joe?
Just Joe, that's what it says on the letter. The select board chairman.
Okay.
If that's okay with the board, that's fine. If you want to change it, that's okay too.
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the cemetery discussion. You all received some a sample policy. And Stan, do you have anything you want to add to this thing before we, since you met with Walter and Bill and all that, Kathy and whatever?
I just got a bunch of questions on this that I think we either have to get back to Bill with and have him look at again.
Well, that's okay. But I mean, you don't. There's nothing you need to report.
No. The only thing I do want to mention is John had a concern. I had in that letter that all the cemeteries were checked on a weekly basis. That was my goof. I didn't really mean to include Stiles on that one. I just knew there were 6 cemeteries, so I put in 6 there. I'm sure they don't go out there on a weekly basis and check.
No, it's once a year, I think.
That was my mistake. I think they're out there once a year just to clear.
Yeah, Don told me last year that they go out there once a year through Wyndham.
No, that was my mistake. I just put in that 6 just because that's how many cemeteries. But I do think there's some things on this list that we really should go through and at some point.
Well, you want to start on it now, or how do you want to handle this?
I think probably what we ought to do is maybe, Joe, you and I ought to sit down. I mean, some of these points are good, and the ones that really need to be discussed after that, then we can bring them up.
It's okay with me, Stan. Anytime from Wednesday on, I'm available.
Did you get my list?
I don't know what you're talking about. So are you talking about your list, Stan, or are you talking about what I drew up as the cemetery policy?
My initial discussion was based on the list that I put together, and John questioned about Stiles Cemetery being checked on a weekly basis. I didn't need to include that there. That was point number 8 on that list.
Okay, you're talking really 2 different things. One is how you're going to handle burials in the cemetery. The other is how you're going to handle the crew working on the cemetery. That's a completely different, separate topic. The policy has to do with cemeteries and the lots and who can be buried where and how you run them. That is a completely separate thing.
Yes, understood. I was just John had a question on that original list that I sent out. And
what's on the agenda today is the cemetery policy.
Okay, never mind.
I didn't get that list.
All right, so Stan, why don't you and I set a time this week to go over your list, and which really doesn't have much to do with the policy.
No, it doesn't.
And we can put that on the next agenda.
Okay.
But the question now is, are there any comments about the cemetery policy?
Oh, they go on and on.
I talked to Kim this morning about it, and my question is that there's some references here about Middletown, and Joe has 4 lots, and he bought them as a full burial. I don't know how many other people have bought these lots back when I bought mine, who were told that they had full burial, and now there isn't, or there might not be, and I don't know how you handle that.
Well, I looked at that, and that decision was made at a select board meeting on February 9th, 2004. And I think that, in my opinion, the best way to handle that is that all that becomes effective after that date. After that decision was made on February 2004 is when that takes effect.
Well, that's how it should be.
Was made.
That's how it should be, because you can't tell somebody who bought a lot back in 1999 or 1970, whatever, that all of a sudden they can't have full burial when they bought it with that stipulation.
But what if you can't physically have a full burial?
I don't know how you.
I mean, the only other thing I thought about is going over the maps,
right,
looking who bought what in that cemetery, and give them the option, letting them know if I can't imagine there's that many, and giving them the option to turn in their lot for another location.
Yes.
But if you physically can't full body bury somebody because the climate has changed or the land or the landscaping's changed, I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, I think that's the thing. I think that's when the family hopefully gets happen and make that determination. But I think Joe's right, and I agree 100% that if somebody bought their lot before that date without any restrictions, I think the effect has to be after that date.
But what if you can't do it, though? Even if you bought something prior to the effective of that date?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's what we have to look at when we do the map.
Right.
Well, if you can't do it, physically can't do it, then there has to be some remedy for the individual who purchased it with the full intent.
Sure.
Right.
The town, if that doesn't work, then the town can buy back that plot and have the opportunity to find some other place.
Exactly.
Yeah, there has to be some remedy.
Yes. We don't know how many are in that same boat.
No, I have no idea.
Question, Stan?
Sure.
When you do the mapping that Debo's going to do, that mapping is going to be the perimeter.
Yes.
Is he also under contract to do the actual grid or lay the lots out in the cemetery?
He may do a grid, but he's not going to insert names. What he's going to do is put in prominent features within that perimeter, like a major stone or a couple of major plots that you could use as references. And then hopefully what we do is during some summer, we get a college intern or somebody that, is majoring in history or geology or something, then can go up there with the maps and then really do the absolute plotting. The only one he's going to plot, because it's so small, is Styles. When he goes out and does Styles, he then will plot each individual, because there's only, I don't know, 10 burials out there.
Right. Well, where I was going with that was, if we are going to be able to create, or he's going to be able to create a document for us that would show the lots, and we could find out how many other people are in the same situation as Joe, how many of those sales were made before 2004, and how many sales have been made after 2004. It seems like that part we could find out, right? The date of when the sale was made. That could be done without a map.
Yeah.
You just look at the ledger of when they were done.
And that would be something I would hope that Kim would have, right? That you have that paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay. And Don still has more paperwork to turn in. I guess he wants to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kim, what you're saying is that you could go back to the record and see that Jacqueline Smith bought a lot in whatever cemetery back in 1981, and now it's you can't have a full burial. We could then contact that individual. Is that correct?
Yeah, we could do that. We have copies of every deed. I mean,
Right.
yeah, we could go one by one through it, or just look at the maps and go by the maps too. But yeah, we could do it that way.
I mean, some of these lots that were purchased might never ever be used either.
Exactly.
Right, and that was another discussion we had. If somebody has a 4-place plot, let's say for instance, and none of the family is going to be buried there, who's ever is the heir to this, it's not going to be used. They could potentially turn that back to the town for the price that they paid for it, and then it can be used by somebody else after they purchase it.
Right.
And that apparently does exist, at least in one, if not another cemetery. They bought nobody.
Dan, was there any discussion with you and John about the care of the stones? Some of the stones are pretty historic.
Well, that's one of the things that we want to discuss in the policy thing.
No, well, I don't think you want to discuss it in the policy. It belongs to the people that put them there. And if the family doesn't want to fix them, you might want to talk to the Geographical Historical Society to get permission from those that are alive whose stones need to be done, and see if they want to fix them. But they belong to the people, and I don't think you want to change that policy. Otherwise, you're going to be fixing headstones every time someone wants you to.
Well, I'm sure there's stones up there that there is no family left. I mean, there's a stone that's got to be 10, 12 feet tall, and it's on a pretty good angle. And if somebody doesn't do something with that soon, and again, I don't know the name, there may be family involved, but there's some significant amount of work on these big stones. And this is the village cemetery. That if there's a stone that's got to be 10, 12 feet tall, it's like a spire. You can see where it shifted on its base to one side being crooked by 2 inches. It's about ready to go. And if that goes, it's going to take out 3 or 4, 5 more stones with it. There's a lot of work to be done on these. I don't know what's been done in the past.
Well, I guess we have to have the policy of what do you do if the individual who has a stone that is in jeopardy and that individual family doesn't really give a damn about it. What do we do?
Well, and that's the other thing I questioned on this. Somebody buys a plot or a lot, whatever you call it. I would call it a plot, but a lot of times it's a lot. That's just a word. But is when they buy that, there's nothing in the policy that indicates that lot will be taken care of forever by the town, or is it the responsibility of the person that buys that lot?
It says in there the cemetery will be kept in good repair.
Yeah.
The very last item by the town.
So does that include
the town? It has to be.
No, it does not include the stones.
Where does it say that?
At the very end.
Very end. All cemeteries are accessed by foot. Cemetery grounds will be maintained to the best possible.
Issued by the caretaker.
Or does it say not including the stone?
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that it does include the stone. The stones belong to the people. They don't belong to the cemetery.
Well, I think
that's why they purchased their own.
But if you look back, haven't you got some bills from some masons that have done some work on the stones up there?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's an old stone that's laminated together with aluminum sheets. I don't know who did that. But,
did the town pay for that?
Well, according to what I've been told by the caretaker up there, that they hire this guy Potter, who's some sort of a funeral director, I guess, and he hires people out to do the repairs.
Well, I know Steve has been up there working on them too in the village one. He did, but just as you go through the gate, there's a big one there. He did some work on.
It's got to be
Who
something.
paid him?
That's why I
And who
said
paid him?
the policy is really.
Town did.
We got to work on the policy.
Well, a lot of cemeteries have what they call perpetual care,
Yeah.
where it's taken care of by the I guess whoever owns the cemetery, the town, church, or whatever.
Which the trustee of public fund has cemetery lots and graves for sales, and then I have an account that's called care of cemetery graves. And that's where years ago people used to put money in for perpetual care. Nobody gives to that anymore. So there is money sitting in that.
Well, maybe you have to take a look at when you sell the grave, increasing the price or doing something you build up some reserve.
Maybe if you want to build it into the policy for they're required to put in for perpetual care. I mean, that's another option.
You have to charge for it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Of the purchase of the plot.
But I think you have to be realistic, and I'm just take my case for the moment. So, okay, so I go buy my stone, and I don't have any more relatives. My kids, nobody really gives a damn about it. And 100 years later, the stone isn't, what are you going to do? Someone's got to fix it, right?
No, you can just, it'll go away. No.
Oh, I'm serious. I mean, you can't rely on that the family is going to want to take care of this thing forever and ever and ever. Maybe there's no family left. Who knows?
So right now in the cemetery maintenance fund, which was created way back when for perpetual care, there's 15,000 in there, almost 16,000. But that's not going to last long when you start fixing stones and using this account.
No.
Maybe it is something to think about, put perpetual care part of the sale, or some of the sale of that can be divided and put into perpetual care. Yeah. So of the 300 in the sale or the 150, take half and I can put it into the maintenance and one of it into the sales of lots and graves. Which I think has money in it.
I'm not sure exactly what way to go, but I certainly think something like that has got to happen if we're going to try to maintain these cemeteries as they should be.
I mean, you can state it in the policy that half of your purchase price is going towards perpetual care.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to deal with this. I agree with Stan. I'm not sure what the proper way is, but I think you can't bury your head here, because there is going to be areas or times that you're going to have to do some maintenance on some of these stones, and you're not going to get the individual family to do it, so somebody's got to do it.
Or you put a line budget in your budget.
Oh, that's the other way you can
each
do it.
year.
Well, good luck for that. Look where we're at right now. We don't even have any taxes. I mean, well, I'd be very careful about what we put in for line items coming forward.
Stan, did you ask?
Go ahead, John.
Stan, did you ask Walter or Don what is being done now?
As far as the stone repair?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just call this guy Potter, and he makes arrangements, and somebody comes out and fixes them.
And then
that's right.
We didn't go into how it's paid for or anything, but that's what they do. Why do we have to, when we have a caretaker? To me, you might be contacting this as Potter, which I don't know, and he's a funeral director, and he contacts a stone mason or monument builder or whatever they call them. I don't know if he takes if he charges for his services to make a phone call or not.
They fix them themselves. The Potters do monuments. Now they do it.
Who pays the Potters?
I'll research that. Probably it just gets submitted as a bill, and it probably comes out of the cemetery. Everything that Don submits comes out of the cemetery budget.
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and I'll take a look. And he's never gone over his budget, so.
The problem is, if you go up and walk the cemeteries, you can see why.
Yeah.
Okay, here's here is the way that Springfield does it. Can you see that on your?
Yes.
Yes.
That's how Springfield does it. It's 300 bucks.
Yeah, so if ours is 150, we could split ours and have part of it go to perpetual care and part of it for the sale.
Yeah.
I think something has to be done like that. I'm not sure exactly. Something has to be.
But you're talking about stones that are going to be there in the future. What about the stones in the past?
Yeah, that's the question.
That's what you should be talking about.
I think, if I remember correctly, I had a discussion with Don a long time ago, is that if a stone is in bad repair, he used to use a person in Springfield, and then he switched over to Fenton and Hennessy, I think, down in Bellows Falls for some reason.
Springfield went out of business.
Yeah, okay, so that's something happened. I don't know what happened. And he just calls him up, and I think, you're right, I think the bill gets submitted and the town pays for it.
Yeah, he used Austin, Joe. Springfield, and they went out of business.
Yeah.
Okay, because Austin did my markers for me. I know that. Because I paid them.
Well, I think we've got more work to do on this thing.
Yeah, and then I think also my other question is, we have to decide about these residents and non-residents. I mean, we don't have a lot of plots left. I mean, can you restrict it just to residents or former residents, or I think there's got to be more of a definite policy.
Well, some connection to the town somehow. They used to own a house here or something to that effect. I'm not sure.
I don't either.
Something.
The problem is it gets really subjective, and it's been really subjective when they've done it. It's not been a really good policy. So
no, that's why we have to do it.
Well, or do you? Or you need to find a cemetery.
Yeah, and then like, question of who's going to do this. Like it says Cobb Cemetery, there's 8 or 10 but available but wet and perhaps only in late summer. Who's going to make sure that if Mary Smith decides she wants to be buried in Cobb's and she buys a plot, that somebody's got to tell her that she can't be buried there until August.
That whole section there that you're talking about right now, don't take what's in there as what's in there.
Right.
Somebody has to make all those decisions
on
what I mean. Each cemetery. So maybe it is Burgess Cemetery, no full burial. Village Cemetery, nothing. Middletown Cemetery, no full burial. Pottonville, that's the only place that we can do right now. Cobb, no burials at all. Stylesbrook, done. So I mean, that's all what you got to do, and then we got to find a cemetery. I've been asking people for property, and I'm still chasing it down. I haven't got anybody that would say anything to us. But
did you ever get an answer from Mola?
No.
Okay.
Try him again.
Well,
I've tried him by phone. I've tried him by letter. I don't think he wants to respond. So there you are.
I guess you can only do so much. If he doesn't want to respond, you got to figure it's a no-show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think whatever we were going to do with this, I think that we just have to continue with it for future discussion.
Okay, then I want two of you to work on it in the near future. Period.
Well,
because otherwise we're never going to do this.
We certainly decided that Joe and I were going to do this.
So
okay, then do it.
We can start on this thing, and we can have a meeting once a week or whatever we need to do it, and give the ideas, and then we can have it for the next select board meeting again.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
It works for me.
And you can do it on meetings. It worked really good to do it on meetings.
Okay.
On Microsoft Meeting.
You'll have to show us how to do that.
No, look, Stan, do you have a problem if we go 6 feet apart and talk about it? I don't.
Stairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we all done with cemetery now?
Yep.
Okay, what's the executive session for? Do we need it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do you guys want to talk about the personnel in the cemetery or not?
Stan, are you ready to talk about it?
We can talk about it. I'm not sure what we're going to do about it.
Stan, do you have the questions that I sent you?
Yes. Well, I don't have, the only comment that I had was what I was told I was out of order with, was your comment about styles. That I didn't mean to put styles in that group.
Uh-oh.
The rest of them, yeah, I agree with your comments. I just wanted to clarify your comment on styles being checked once a week.
But you don't have the other comments?
Yeah, about the shoes and the gas and
yeah right.
Yes.
Well, sometime that's got to be discussed. I don't know when you want to do it.
That's the type of thing. It's not the first what you mentioned. That's the type of things need to be discussed in executive session. It's the stuff that you shouldn't just talk about in the public. I agree,
but are we prepared to do it now, or do you want to do that on another time? It's up to you guys.
You're going to have to make a decision sometime this summer about what you're going to do next year.
Why don't we do some discussion today and see if we can make some progress, and we may have to revisit again at a later date, but at least get started on it.
It's okay with me. So you want to do other business before we go into executive session, if there is any?
Yeah. Yep.
And public comment?
Yep.
So do we have any other business?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On our agenda says number 9, tree warden policy. In our discussion, it was talked about that this is actually a tree policy. So are we going to do tree warden policy at another time?
Yeah, I haven't done anything on that. I have no idea what you want, Al. And if you would help me with that, then we could do something. I have no idea.
Everybody's assuming I want to be the tree warden. It's not what I want. It's what the select board wants. The I do not want to write a job description for a tree warden and then I become the tree warden. Oh yeah, well he wrote the policy for himself and now he is it. You know, I want the select board to make a decision. This is what we want the tree warden to do in Grafton. I look at it and say, yeah, I can do that, or like, no, somebody else ought to do that.
Oh, okay, but I think if the article that I gave to Bill this morning is the state is trying to write the tree warden policy, not a tree policy. So maybe what we should do, since we have the tree policy, we don't have a tree warden policy. Let's see what the state comes up with, and then we can modify it or accept it as we want.
Okay. Did they give a timeline when that would be coming out?
No, but I think what I got the impression from Carolyn Partridge that is something that they're trying to deal with this year. When, I don't know.
The House just passed it in the second reading. They have a third reading this week. They're supposed, which she expects it to be passed, and then it goes to the Senate.
So it's probably going to happen this year, or if it gets rejected, then we can go forward without it.
Well, I think that article was talking about two different things. It was talking about the ash borer, and then it was also talking about a policy that has not been anything done with since 1904. And correct. I don't, if you wait for the legislature, you're going to wait forever. It's not going to happen. We got to do something on our own.
Well, but I didn't read it that way, John. I read it that the legislature was going to do something about the tree warden policy this year.
I don't believe it.
Well, you're probably right, but the legislation, the session will be over fairly. We should know in a month. No.
Supposed to.
Yeah. So why don't we just put it on for next meeting? Let's see what happens.
Okay.
So do we have any other business? Other than that question? None?
Oh, what about that generator?
Okay, let's talk about the generator.
I remember having the discussion, and it was decided that since the building's there and the generator's there, and we've always paid for it, that we should continue to pay for it as we did before. So,
pretty much. Now, the only question I had is, didn't we pay the last bill? Wasn't it $900 or something the last time we did this?
No. This, if you see the date on this bill, that's why I think that this is the same bill, and I was pretty sure we told them to go ahead and fix it, because the date on the bill is December 9th.
I see.
On the estimate.
Yes, you're right. I didn't even see that. So maybe that's what I'm referring to. The only thing that is not on this, though, is the state certificate, which I think is another $100.
No, this is a repair. This is a completely different thing.
Okay.
This is not their service. This is a repair.
Okay, so it's not the inspection.
No.
So what about annual maintenance of the generator?
That's separate from this, Kathy. This is what they found while they're doing that, and it needs to be fixed.
But did we get a maintenance bill?
Yeah, we have that. We used to get that, I think, in the summer, but it's been a while since we got it, but I'm sure it's coming.
Well, we dealt with that last year. Remember, we tried to get a different company to do the work, but the company has to be certified.
Yep.
Bill,
that was this bill.
Bill, what did that say? If they had no response from us within a month, then what happens?
Then they're not going to do the work.
That's right. So if that's
they figure
December,
we don't want it done.
It is May now.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't have to fix it. I mean, it's our generator, or the school generator. It's ours, whatever, whose it is. But it's got to be fixed. No.
Oh yeah. No, you got to do it.
So
have a choice.
Last October is when we paid the $908 for maintenance.
So there was a $900.
Yeah, 908.
That includes the $100 certificate, right?
Yes, and that's a complete annual service, parts, labor, and mileage included. But that's all for just the maintenance. This is above and beyond in an estimate.
Yeah, I thought there was a $900 bill.
Yep, you're right.
And Stan, I think we tried to find another company, and we were unable to because of the certification requirement.
And the size of it too.
Yeah.
I don't know who this is Brookfield. I mean, you got the one down in
Powers
down in Keaton.
They won't do it.
They won't do it?
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah.
Will Coder do it?
Probably got trouble.
I remember I talked to Coda, I talked to Powers, I talked to all of them, and I couldn't find anybody else who would do it.
Because they don't have certification.
And I don't think Coda will do it because they're not big enough.
Yeah, but they're into generators now. In the last 2 years, I bought 14,000 off of them, and they repair them and and do the annual maintenance.
They do mine.
Yeah,
they do maintenance and repairs on mine.
Okay, I'm not sure what size this is, but when I was talking to people, I was told by the people I was calling, the only people who can do this is Brookfield. So if that has the license and for this size of generator.
I think the license is the area. I don't think it's the size.
Yeah, this is a 45 kW.
Well, I have a 35 and they do mine.
They should do that.
yeah. I would check with Coder and see if they don't.
Yeah, that's worth a shot.
Okay.
Any other business? If not, do we have any public comment? Public, are you having any comment? No? Okay, if there's no public comment, then we need a motion to go into executive session. So now.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.